Let's talk about all the weapon balancing and important changes that are coming with Season 4 Reloaded, and there are a lot of them. A lot of you are going to be thrilled with the weapon balancing because they are bringing some Modern Warfare and Cold War guns back into the mix. Now, before we jump into the weapon balancing, let's cover a few things, specifically the playlist update. They are back to weekly playlist changes, so no more daily where you're guessing what game mode you're going to be playing that day. For the whole entire week, we're going to have Fortune's Keep solos through quads. We're going to have Rebirth quads and Rebirth of the Dead, which we'll talk about in a second. Next week, it's going to flip. So we're going to have Rebirth solos through quads and Fortune's Keep quads. And then, of course, it's going to go back and forth. So no more daily. This right here, Titanium Trials, is going to be Caldera. So let's talk about quickly Rebirth of the Dead. I don't think this is going to be a huge deal. It's around for 2 weeks. This is essentially Haunting of Verdansk. If you die, you come back in as a zombie. Got to collect the antivirals. And then if you collect enough, you come back as a human. Last human wins. Look, it's a lot of fun. This is going to be absolute chaos on Rebirth, especially because as zombies are eliminated, the infestation meter fills and everybody eventually comes back in. So it's going to be a little bit of chaos, but I don't want to spend too much time. I don't think a lot of you are going to be playing it, but look, it is going to be fun for a little bit. Titanium Trials is going to be on Caldera. Now we're going to scroll down here to general. Just a quick note, private match, we're going to have Fortune's Keep at some point here in the near future. Let's talk about Cursed Ground, something to note on Fortune's Keep. You don't really have to know about this or do this, but it's important to be aware of that there is this event going on. If somebody opens one of the cursed chests, a bunch of zombies come in, there's rounds, and if you complete those rounds, you get cash, kill streaks, equipment, and possibly perk tokens. I don't think it's going to be worth doing. It's going to take time, take away from actually getting kills and getting your loadout, so I don't think it's going to be worth it, but some people are going to definitely be doing it. This one is crucial. Listen, hear me out here. Portable redeploy balloons. This has all game modes, so we'll see if this actually is added to Rebirth and Fortune's Keep. It should be, and I see this being a great change, specifically for Rebirth. Here's why. Fortune's Keep, a lot of, parkour areas, easy to get on rooftops, but think about this. Think about if you put a portable redeploy balloon on top of headquarters, and you can redeploy to the tower and deal with the tower campers that way. Or maybe if we're lucky enough, this has half the health of a normal redeploy balloon and has a shorter launch distance. So I don't know if you could put it at the bottom of tower and redeploy up, but at the end of the day, this gives us options to get up to maybe even water tower or, redeploy up to the tower building or in chem, rooftop, gives us a little bit more, gives us a few more options to get height. Bomber planes, that's Caldera, don't need those. Adjustments, let's talk about gas here for Fortune's Keep. Gas circles, size and timings have been rebalanced basically for faster match pacing. We've all had those situations where there's 2 teams left, the circle's massive, you're running around, it's like you can never actually wipe that team, so it's gonna be a little bit quicker pace. Radar jammer drop rates on Fortune's Keep have decreased to align with Rebirth Island. That's a really good thing, and we've of course, actually we'll talk about that in a second. Respawn loadouts, so updated most weapons and added new ones into the Resurgence respawn loadouts. I'm guessing that is the crates, but not totally sure. Armored SUV, don't need to worry about. Trophy systems, just a quick note here, we've all had that situation where you throw your loadout drop marker and the trophy system blocks it. That's no longer going to happen. Trophy systems only affect lethals and tacticals. Next up, let's go ahead and jump to the radar jammer radii. Reduces the radius of the radar jammer again on Rebirth Island and Fortune's Keep. Something we've been wanting for a while now. They did it on Rebirth Island, so it's a little bit smaller, but seems like it's going to be getting even smaller than it already is. Buy stations on Fortune's Keep, they're going to increase that to 13 now. A change we've wanted for a while. More buy stations, more areas to pop UAVs, get stuff that you actually need. Public events on Fortune's Keep, we are now seeing the fire sale happen in Circle 3. This is just something to take note of. It's going to happen at the same time every single game, probably like it is on Rebirth, 15 seconds after the second circle closes. After that actually closes, then that will happen, so we can use that to our advantage. And lootable perks have been enabled once again on Fortune's Keep. Serpentine, no changes now. It's definitely a change that they're taking a look at, something that they need to address here, but it's gonna happen shortly after the mid-season launch, so hopefully here soon. Thermite's got an increase in damage. Still don't think they're really worth it. We were talking about if you stick somebody, you're gonna be able to get that down, but at the end of the day, I don't think they're worth running. We've got the new Vargo S assault rifle, probably going to be pretty good if I had to guess, or maybe they put it in, they balance it, and then they'll buff it at some point to make it a little bit better if it's not quite there yet. Let's talk about this real quick. 200 weapons in Warzone. They're now testing out a system where they can recommend weapons based on what's best and what, this way you don't always have to stay up to date in terms of videos and content creators, which hurts me, but you know what? It is what it is. But at the end of the day, that's going to help you understand what guns are good. Let's talk about all the weapon balancing here. Assault Rifle Charlie, this is the bar right here. This got a pretty big nerf to the recoil. Definitely might be usable because at the end of the day, we're talking about, you know, a little bit of a decrease. It's definitely going to be tougher to use though. Assault Rifle Alpha, which is the STG, not totally viable to begin with. We were talking about the Cooper Carbine, you know, the NZ, and of course the bar, all of which got nerfs. But the, you know, STG here, little bit of recoil control decrease, so this got a nerf. Then we talk about the Cooper Carbine. I think this is a pretty big nerf right here. 60 round drum, the horizontal recoil control decreased to 11%, down from 29. So this got a pretty big nerf to the horizontal recoil control. Now, why is this a problem? A lot of other guns will be like, well, let's just use another ammo, except we can't use another magazine here because of how fast it burns through ammo. So we can't use the 45. We've got to use the 60. That's going to make it much tougher to use. Assault Rifle Bravo here is the Itcher Burst. Not really too concerned about that. The NZ right here, little bit of max and minimum damage range decrease. Of course, they decrease the neck damage multiplier. Biggest question with the NZ is, what is this right here? Sustained recoil control decreased. That how much that was decreased is going to determine whether this is viable or not. Nikita right here actually got a good buff right here. We get the recoil control increase to 11%, up from 10%. Not too concerned about the movement speed, the ADS penalty, or the sprint to fire because it is an AR, so we're going to be using that at range. You know, 60 round drum as well got a recoil control increase. So I think actually the Nikita could bump into the meta a little bit. Definitely going to be seeing that used more often. The KG got a nerf. I don't really know why. I mean, I always thought it was good, but not great. Yeah, they nerfed the damage and the recoil control, so nothing to worry about there. Now let's get into some Modern Warfare and Cold War guns right here. AMAX given a buff, headshot damage multiplier increased, minimum damage increased. The Kilo Schmagilo gets the buff. Mid damage step removed, so that means basically there was a mid damage range that's now removed. Minimum damage increased to 23, up from 18. Farah buffed, max damage range increased. Craig buffed, mid damage range increase, and headshot locational damage multiplier increased. Obviously headshots going to be worth more. M13 buffed, neck locational damage multiplier increased to 1.3, so you don't have to mix in headshots to be able to get a fast TTK. Volk, I'm seeing the Volk kind of as a sniper support right here. Rate of fire increased, damage range decreased a little bit, damage penalty removed, which is a good sign. Capacity increased to 45, but the recoil control was decreased, making it much tougher to actually use. Let's talk about submachine guns here. We're specifically talking about the Blixen and the Marco right now. Armaguerra, headshot locational damage for this body barrel right here. I don't see this being a huge difference. I think it's still going to be really good, especially as a sniper support. Now the Blixen, little nerf to the damage multiplier for headshots, little nerf to the minimum damage range, little nerf to the movement speed. Overall, I really think what they did, and of course the 54 round mag got a nerf, what they did is they essentially just brought the TTK down a little bit. They slowed that TTK down a little bit. I think it's still going to be in the meta. I think it's still going to be really good. The Marco 5 nerfed, max damage and mid damage decreased, neck locational damage multiplier decreased to 1.25, and the Perfetto barrel was nerfed. Again, think it's still going to be really good. They're just going to nerf, or they just nerf that TTK a little bit, making it a little bit slower. Let's go into the UGR. And by the way, we have a lot more to cover. We've got LMGs to talk about. We got some snipers to talk about, and we have shotguns to talk about. Yes, the UGR, upper extremities locational damage increased, max damage increased, mid damage range increased. I think the UGR could be in the meta here. I think it's going to be an interesting one that we see. The downside, again, as I always talk about with Cold War and Modern Warfare guns, is or specifically SMGs, is the mobility factor. The mobility on Vanguard guns just blows those out of the water, and mobility is a massive advantage on Rebirth and Fortune's Keep when it comes to finessing and getting out of bad situations. Submachine gun Delta right here is the Uzi. The Uzi was given a buff. Minimum damage increase at neck locational actually got a massive buff right here. So this actually this TTK could be pretty good. Could be an interesting choice with the Uzi. Submachine gun Alpha, which is the Cold War MP5. We always love the Cold War MP5. This is a pretty big buff right here. Neck locational damage multiplier increased to 1.2. And the max damage range, which the problem with the Cold War MP5 was always the range of it. The max damage range increased to 10, up from 7.6. So that really is going to give you more range, make it a more viable option right here. Shotguns, all of the following shotguns, I'm not going to read them off. You got them on screen right here, have been increased by the max pellet damage has been increased by 26%. Shotgun Bravo right here is the Gallo. Max pellet damage increased to 25. Gracie Auto was given a pretty big buff right here. Shotgun Delta is the Origin 12, given a buff to the max damage, max pellet damage and the minimum pellet damage. Now, do I think, and the street sweeper, of course, was given a increase right here. Do I think these are viable? It's going to be tough to say. We're going to have to see. The problem with the shotguns, of course, you don't have to ADS, but once again, going back to what I said about Vanguard SMGs, the mobility here is just not good. So you could just run circles around people. And the problem is if somebody gets away when you're using a shotgun, you're never going to be able to catch them. You're just so slow. Sniper rifles here, we've of course have changes to the Car 98 ADS transition in time decreased. Basically, they buffed that ADS time right here, made it a little bit better. We see the 3 line here with the damage increase, so that's a good sign. You can see them really pushing for Vanguard snipers to start to take over. We're all trying to hold on to, you know, the Car 98 and the Swiss, but they're trying to push these Vanguard snipers into the mix. Marksman rifle, I've said for the past few updates, the M1 Garand could be actually pretty interesting. Lower extremities damage multiplier increased to 1. It's just, I don't think it's quite there yet. It's one of those I pick it up off the floor and I'm like, oh, this thing kind of slaps, but I'm not ready to put it into my loadout. Next up, we have the Whitley right here. This is going to be interesting. The Whitley got a buff. LMG's got a buff. We've got the Whitley and the UGM. Horizontal recoil control increase. We got the Gracie Rapid, the 50, 150 round boxes. You know, the penalty decrease. So when we talk about the penalty decreasing, that is a buff right there. The problem here, you know, you get the initial recoil penalty decrease, so there's less of a penalty, and the sustained recoil bonus increase. I don't know why they can't just keep this thing normal across normal in their language. Both of those are actually given buffs right here. And the UGM, the horizontal recoil control, now increased by 10%, and the neck locational damage multiplier increased to 1.6. Pretty big buff for the UGM. Definitely could see this fitting into the meta. Don't worry about the Carve or the M16 or the pistols or anything like that. Last thing that we want to talk about here, kind of a few quick attachment for Vanguard guns. Vertical recoil control now decreased by 1.5% for the recoil booster. For the underbarrels, we've got the Carver foregrip, which is a very popular underbarrel, decreases the vertical recoil control. And the Strife Angled, we saw the Strife Angled really come into the mix with this last update in Season 4, both on ARs and SMGs, primarily on SMGs, but on some ARs as well, like the NZ. That horizontal recoil control now decreased to 7% a little bit. So we got the Terminator 800, the T800, and the T1000 both coming as operators. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something. Subscribe down below for daily Rebirth and Fortune's Keep videos, and I will see you in the next one.